If you were in the Iranian government today, would you not want to get nuclear weapons? Would you not think I've been attacked 2 years running by people I was in the middle of negotiations with? Every time I'm in a negotiation with them, they kill our negotiators, they kill our top foreign diplomats, they threaten to kill more of us. Every time we're doing a deal, whether it's in Geneva or Vienna or Oman, they attack us, which is what the Israelis did last year. Why would you not want to get nuclear weapons? Why would you not look at North Korea and say, no one dares touch North Korea because they have nukes? Why would you not listen to Doron speaking on Piers Morgan saying, well, we didn't sign the NPT, so we don't have any obligations not to have nukes? Why wouldn't Iran say, well, we're going to pull out of the NPT, we're going to do what North Korea did, and we're going to do it because the world saw us get illegally attacked 2 years running? Doron asked me, do I want Iran to have nuclear weapons? No, I'm anti-nuclear weapons. I'm not like you. I don't support nukes and have a secret nuclear weapons program.
This debate starts with one brutal contradiction. How can Israel demand total transparency from Iran while refusing to directly admit what the world already believes about its own nuclear arsenal? Piers Morgan presses Doron Spielman on that hypocrisy, but the conversation quickly explodes once Mehdi Hasan starts fact-checking claims about the JCPOA, Gaza, Lebanon, and Israel's military actions. What begins as a debate about Iran's nuclear ambitions turns into a furious argument over double standards, international law, and who actually destabilized the Middle East. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and let's get into it.
Why is it that Israel does not admit it has nuclear weapons? And are you prepared to do so now?
Israel, as we all know, is a state that upon its very founding faced an existential threat from 7 countries that attacked it. We also know that in 1967, Israel was attacked by 3 countries, followed by 1973, followed by the Gulf War in 1981, followed by Hezbollah and Hamas. There's probably not been another country on earth
What's this
that has
got to
been
do
attacked
with
as
you
much
being
as Israel.
transparent
And
about
I'm going
having
to answer
nuclear
you.
weapons?
According to the Non-Proliferation Treaty, which Israel has not signed and therefore is not bound by, Israel, if it maintains a nuclear arsenal, it has not used it, and if it maintains it, it is because it
Why are you
faces
saying if? You know the answer.
Hold on. And since the Holocaust, which today is International Holocaust Day in Israel, it's Israeli Holocaust Day, and we are mourning tonight 6 million Jews that have died. Israel maintains the ability never to rely on anyone else, and therefore, Israel is not bound by the Nuclear Proliferation Treaty. It didn't sign on. Who is bound? The United States is bound, and it has followed it.
Yeah, but how can you demand?
Iran,
how can you demand?
Pierce, Iran, I answered
Doron,
you.
you're not answering my question.
Because of an existential
Doron,
threat.
Doron.
And I just want to say Iran has signed it and violated it from 2002.
How can you, with a straight face, defend Israel's determination for full transparency by another country over its nuclear weapon ambitions when you have so far steadfastly ducked my very simple question as to whether Israel has its own nuclear weapons? And if
I have not ducked your question.
Do you
I'm
have
answering
them or
you,
not?
Pierce, and I explained to you that while I do not have first-hand knowledge of Israel's nuclear facilities, like you, I've heard the foreign reports.
You don't know. You don't know.
Hold on. I'm answering. Pierce,
as a reservist IDF spokesman, you don't know if Israel has nukes.
I would assume it is highly likely, as do you, that Israel has a nuclear program. Israel never signed the NPT, and the reason Israel never signed the NPT, I would assume, even though I wasn't in the room, is because Israel maintains its individual right to defend itself. To compare that now to Iran and a potential nuclear program in a regime that is the world's #1 global terrorism, or they are not just terrorism, they engineered the idea of terrorism. They represent terror that has killed 241 American Marines. They have killed 85 Jews in Buenos Aires. They have killed thousands of U.S. soldiers with roadside bombs. They have carried out 22, according to MI5, mass casualty attempts in England since 2022. They just killed 40,000 of the protesters. Israel has a protest about cottage cheese. Israel's protests every day. How can you compare the idea that Israel would have a nuclear weapon and Iran, the potential of Hitler having a nuclear weapon?
Let Mehdi respond.
I noticed that Doron said that Iran killed 30,000 of its people a few minutes ago. Now he's saying 40,000. By the end of this discussion, it'll be 100,000. It's funny how they inflate the numbers of people killed in Iran, but never recognize the 100,000 people you killed in Gaza, that your military killed in Gaza, 100,000 people minimum killed in Palestine, which are actually verified numbers by international organizations like the Lancet Medical Journal. You deny those. But let's put that to one side and deal with some of the stuff you've been saying. Number one, just some fact checks. A UN Security Council resolution is binding under international law. The Reagan administration voted for it, and you've never followed it. You proudly say you haven't signed the NPT. People watching at home will laugh their heads off. You're basically saying, because we didn't sign an international treaty, we don't have to follow international law. So then why doesn't Iran just pull out of the NPT? Why doesn't everyone just pull out of the NPT and do what Israel did? You say Israel reserves the right to defend itself. That old chestnut. No other country in the Middle East is allowed to defend itself. Israel is the country that bombed, count them, 6 countries in the Middle East last year. I can't think of a single country on planet Earth, aside from the US and Israel, that bombed half a dozen countries in the calendar year 2025. That is your country that you're defending, a rogue nation that bombs whoever it sees fit and then claims to be a victim. You say that, for example, you mentioned in your comments, you said 1967 we were attacked. Complete flat falsehood. Israel attacked first in 1967. Everyone knows that. It's a documented fact. You can call it a preemptive war, but you can't just lie on here and say you were attacked. You were not. You said that Iran pioneered the use of terrorism in the Middle East. Actually, that was the Zionist gangs. That was the Stern Gang and the Irgun who blew up British diplomats, bombed the King David Hotel, hung British sergeants, attacked British civilians and military and Arabs. It was actually Jewish and Zionist terror gangs that pioneered terrorism in the Middle East 100 years ago. So a lot of your facts are just completely wrong, and you're dodging Piers' central point, which is that you do have nukes. You know you have nukes. You're not allowed to say you have nukes, which makes this whole conversation so absurd. But the idea that you would come on TV and go after someone else's civil nuclear program. Remember, the US says Iran did not have a weapons program, while you yourself have weapons. That's the
Mehdi,
US intelligence community's view. They said last year. That is what the US said last year. The US annual.
Then why do we need the JCPOA?
Let me read out the quote to you.
Program that you support.
Why do we read out the quote to you.
A JCPOA,
let me read out the quote to you if you stop interrupting me. I didn't interrupt you, Doron. You spoke for a while. In 2025, this is what the Director of National Intelligence said. We continue to assess Iran is not building a nuclear weapon and that Khamenei has not reauthorized the nuclear weapons program he suspended in 2003. A country that doesn't have nukes is being lectured by you, a country that does have nukes. It would be funny if it wasn't so tragic and you hadn't killed so many Iranian kids as part of your supposedly disarmament program.
What both sides are really arguing over here is something bigger than nukes. Israel's entire strategy for decades has been based on maintaining overwhelming military superiority over every neighboring country at all times. That is why Israel keeps nuclear ambiguity instead of openly confirming its arsenal. It creates deterrence without triggering the same international pressure countries like Iran face. But the danger Mehdi is pointing toward is that this creates a system where some countries are treated as responsible enough to possess extreme military power, while others are told even defensive capabilities are unacceptable. And historically, that imbalance often pushes rival states to pursue stronger weapons anyway. Iraq tried. Libya gave up its program and collapsed years later. North Korea kept its nukes and nobody touches them. So even beyond morality or politics, the real fear is that every military escalation against Iran may actually strengthen the argument inside Iran for why they need a nuclear deterrent in the first place. Let's continue.
A country that doesn't have nukes is being lectured by you, a country that does have nukes. It would be funny if it wasn't so tragic and you hadn't killed so many Iranian kids as part of your supposedly disarmament program.
Let me ask you, Doron, let me ask you a question.
Can I respond?
Doron, let me.
Okay,
you can respond.
Can I respond?
You can respond, but let me ask you. Let me ask you another question.
Like Israel wasn't attacked in '67. That Israel is basically decided
to
launch
the '67 war. That's a fact.
What Mehdi does is he tells a fantasy story.
It's a historical fact.
Israel woke up one morning 2 years ago and said, you know what? We're a country of 9 million people. Let's go attack 6 countries throughout the Middle East.
Not 2 years ago, Doron.
2,000
Not 2 years ago.
Because we just
78 years ago you've been bombing your neighbors.
By the way,
so 78 years you've been bombing your neighbors. From the very beginning.
For a very, very, very long time. If
and you interrupted me, Doron.
I assume that you want to hear my answer. That's why we're here. October 8th.
You interrupted me when I was trying to read out the threat assessment, remember.
October 8th, there was also a war. That war began when Hezbollah saw Israel weaken on October 7th and launched a campaign of 6,000 rockets at Israel. And then Israel responded. Iran fired 500 ballistic missiles, which has been attacking Israel consistently. And Israel decided back then with the United States that it is time to deal with the #1 terror regime in the entire world. And what I hear from you, Mehdi, is you make an incredibly compelling case, diverting the conversation away from stopping Iran's nuclear power by hyper-focusing on the Israeli democracy that you yourself admit has had nuclear weapons for 40 years and never used them. And you were essentially getting a get-out-of-jail-free card for Iran. Mehdi, are you willing, if there's a possibility in your projection, if you projected that Iran would have a nuclear weapon, would you be concerned?
All right, well, I want to ask a question based around that, hang on. If I could just ask a question of Doron now, which is if the whole purpose of this war was to stop Iran developing a nuclear weapon, do you concede now that if you don't get the enriched uranium, either voluntarily handed to you by Iran or by seizure, which would require the use of ground forces, that the whole war will have been a failure? Do you accept that?
No, it wouldn't have all been a failure, because obviously we will not get the most important thing, which is to remove the enriched uranium from Iran, and that is the number one goal.
So it would be a failure if you don't get the uranium?
If we do not get the uranium, the #1 goal of this war will not be fulfilled, and it's going to put the war in a sense of stagnation, which I think will probably continue until that happens for one of two reasons. Either Iran is going to develop a nuclear weapon and threaten the rest of the world, and the world will then try to stop them, probably too late, or at some point in the future, I don't know when, either the US or Israel will try to make that happen. However, this war has been incredibly successful for a very simple reason. We have destroyed Iran's nuclear production capabilities, its launching timers, its hard fuel, all of the many things that go in order to take that bomb, put it on a warhead, and shoot it have been destroyed. Their ballistic missile program has been weakened.
How do we know? Because last summer,
their leadership and the planning mechanism has been destroyed.
Doron, with respect, last summer, after the 12-day war, we were assured that the whole nuclear capability of Iran had been put back decades. It was done, flattened, it was over. 8 months later, a massive war was launched against Iran because it turned out that was all baloney. Now you're spewing, what many people will say is exactly the same rhetorical baloney again. But you're also conceding that if the enriched uranium remains in Iran, this war's a failure. And I don't see how you get it.
I said it isn't a failure because you'll set back a terror regime that operates with ballistic missiles, operates Hezbollah.
But the regime remains in place.
Hamas, you'll have taken, again...
The Supreme Leader's son is the new Ayatollah, right?
Piers.
Yeah?
Say this again, I'm sorry?
The Ayatollah, the Supreme Leader who was killed, his son is his replacement. The IRGC regime remains in place. There's been no protests from the people of Iran, and the Straits of Hormuz have become a massive weapon for the Iranians to use economically, as they also simultaneously attack all their Gulf state neighbours. So the idea that my point is the idea that at the end of this, Iran keeps its enriched uranium, you would have to admit, in that eventuality, the war's a failure.
Because a war, Piers, it's very rare that you get a victory, what's called, unconditional surrender of any enemy. I don't think it's happened since World War II. What you get in wars are cumulative gains. Again, this is not fast food. It's like a McDonald's drive-through. The woman says, "What do you want?" You say, "I want, the Iranian regime." This is a process that began a number of months ago with the 12-day war. And what Israeli intelligence and U.S. intelligence saw is as soon as that war ended, Iran went right back to building a nuclear program, developing the nuclear sites, digging for the uranium that was there. They refurbished their ballistic missile sites and were expanding it from 2,500 to 7,000. And like you said, that now that we see Ali Khamenei has been killed, what do we see happen? They have not reformed. They put in another member of the exact same family, meaning this regime is evil and has to
you have
stop
done this.
now.
Hold on, can I actually say
Mehdi respond
to stop them, Piers. It's the idea of good standing against
Mehdi's
evil.
response, please.
So what both of you are missing, to an extent, is it's not really about what uranium is left in the country. It's about intent. You have left, the Israelis and the American government have left the Iranian government not just in place. There hasn't been the regime change that Netanyahu lied to Trump and said would be easy in that situation from meeting. They've not just left the Iranian regime in place, but they've left the Iranian government with the clear intent to want to have to defend itself, to use Doron and the Israelis' favorite phrase, their right to self-defense. If you were in the Iranian government today, would you not want to get nuclear weapons? Would you not think I'd been attacked 2 years running by people I was in the middle of negotiations with? Every time I'm in a negotiation with them, they kill our negotiators, they kill our top foreign diplomats, they threaten to kill more of us. Every time we're doing a deal, whether it's in Geneva or Vienna or Oman, they attack us, which is what the Israelis did last year. Why would you not want to get nuclear weapons? Why would you not look at North Korea and say, no one dares touch North Korea because they have nukes? Why would you not listen to Doron speaking on Piers Morgan saying, well, we didn't sign the NPT, so we don't have any obligations not to have nukes? Why wouldn't Iran say, well, we're going to pull out of the NPT, we're going to do what North Korea did, and we're going to do it because the world saw us get illegally attacked 2 years running? Doron asked me, do I want Iran to have nuclear weapons? No, I'm anti-nuclear weapons. I'm not like you. I don't support nukes and have a secret nuclear weapons program. I supported the JCPOA, which in the very first paragraph, Iran affirmed never to build nuclear weapons, which said that Iran could only enrich to 3.67%, which got rid of a lot of their highly enriched uranium. You, the Israeli government, Netanyahu, stopped the JCPOA, wrecked the JCPOA. You helped Iran enrich to 20 and then 60. You brought us to this situation, the Israeli government and the Donald Trump administration. So don't lecture the rest of us about nukes when you have nukes and you've now incentivized Iran to get nukes. Every year in the UN General Assembly, Piers, there is a resolution. Let me just finish my point. Doron, you and Piers spoke for a very long time. Let me finish my point. You said you don't like interruptions. I'll finish in a moment. The UN General Assembly votes every year to have a weapons of mass destruction free zone in the Middle East. Iran votes for that resolution. Everyone in the world votes for that resolution. 2 countries don't vote for that resolution. That is the US and Israel, because Israel wants to be the only power. Well, Iran doesn't have nukes, and you do.
You are so naive, Mehdi. It's unbelievable.
Doron.
Listening to you.
You can't even tell. You can't even tell. Doron, you can't even tell the viewers today whether Israel has nukes.
Iran.
You can't even say one
realize,
statement.
Mehdi, you're defending
Doron, why should anyone believe anything you say?
The hidden nuclear program.
No, I'm not actually.
The nuclear program is Iran. It's Ali Khamenei. That's your leader.
You can tell this conversation stopped being about facts a while ago and turned into 2 people arguing from completely different realities. Doron is basically saying, we live in a dangerous region, so we'll do whatever we think keeps us alive. Mehdi is saying, you can't demand rules for everybody else while refusing those same rules yourself. And honestly, that's why these debates go nowhere. One side sees security first, the other sees hypocrisy first. Meanwhile, the bigger issue barely gets addressed. Every time this region goes through another war, more countries start believing nuclear weapons are the only thing that actually guarantees survival. Let's continue.
Doron, you can't even tell the viewers today whether Israel has nukes.
Iran.
You can't even say one
realize,
statement.
Mehdi, you're defending
Doron, why should anyone believe anything you say?
The hidden nuclear program.
No, I'm not actually.
The nuclear program is Iran. It's Ali Khamenei. That's your leader.
No, the US disagree with you. And the IAEA.
I mean,
there's no evidence.
Which one are you? Because you're defending. You sound like Mehdi Khamenei. We're a nice program. We vote against nuclear weapons.
Of course.
We just want
go for racist insults.
In 2014,
that's all you have left.
We already had 20% enriched uranium. I mean, who are you speaking
Doron,
as an American citizen?
And yet,
as a British citizen?
Hold on. You're going back to 2014, Doron?
2014.
Who are you speaking as? You're speaking as the Israeli military.
And it was reported before the JCPOA.
Exactly. And when did the JCPOA get signed, Doron? Do you know what year?
2015.
Do you know what year the JCPOA was signed?
2015.
Exactly, the year later. So why are you going back to 2014? It was resolved in 2015.
And
then you and Trump came along and wrecked it. No, the Trump administration vouched and said Iran was complying with the JCPOA. So when you keep saying, why do you trust Iran? Iran did what it had to do. According to the IAEA,
let's unpack the JCPOA first.
They followed the deal. No.
Mehdi, tell us the conditions of the JCPOA.
I'm going to tell you what happened under the JCPOA.
No, tell me about what does the JCPOA say? You know, tell us all the truth.
I do know, and I'm telling you now. The JCPOA allowed Iran to enrich at 3.67%. When did they start enriching to 20%? When you and your friends in the Israeli government and Donald Trump tore up the JCPOA. Jim Mattis, a general in the American military, who was defense secretary, not under the JCPOA. No, they did not. As every IAEA inspector vouched for.
What do you think happened to that 20%?
By the way, By the way, Doron, what enriched uranium does Israel have? Because the IAEA aren't allowed into Israel. So why don't you tell us? You say we're naive. Everyone watching knows
you're comparing
about your
Israel
own country's
with Iran,
nuclear weapons.
which is
yes, I am. I'm
morally
comparing the country that has attacked
which is
6
morally
countries.
insane.
Why?
Israel's not closing
Why?
the Straits of Hormuz.
Why? You're
and
worse.
International shipping.
You're morally worse
Israel's
than Iran.
not funding
You're
proxies
morally
throughout
worse
the
than
Middle
Iran.
East.
You bombed
Israel
6
doesn't
countries.
target Marines.
You bombed 6
Mehdi,
countries.
Israel does not
You
target
bombed 6
Marines
countries
or have
last year.
Hezbollah or Hamas
You bombed
or
6
kill its own
countries.
people in the streets, even though you think it does. Israel
You just
is an open
murdered
democracy
children
with
in
a leadership
Lebanon
that
last
you don't
week.
particularly like, and we
Doron,
do.
your military just killed 300 people in a single 10-minute span last week. You blew up children in strollers. You killed a 1-year-old at a funeral. You killed 300 people in Lebanon in one day last week.
Who made that battlefield,
You filled
Mehdi?
up the hospitals. You
Mehdi,
bombed
who laid
aid
out that
distribution
battlefield?
centers.
Who created that battlefield?
You did. You violated
We
the
created the
ceasefire with
battlefield?
Hezbollah 15,000 times. Yes, you violated
was
the
there anyone
ceasefire
over there? Was there
15,000
anyone
times
called
according to the UN.
Hezbollah that was
Doron, I know
embedded
you don't
in that
like facts,
population?
right? But you haven't brought a single fact to this discussion.
Iran wasted the people going
15,000
in the
ceasefire
streets and they
violations.
killed them in cold blood. Israel
Why did you violate
tells
the
the people of
ceasefire with
southern
Hezbollah?
Lebanon, please move out of the way so that we can actually kill Hezbollah. And
No.
Pierce had on
Then
just
why did
last
you kill
week,
300
Salah
people in
Makhnouk.
10 minutes?
Salah Makhnouk
Why did you
was
carry
just
out
on
Lebanon's
in
October the
Lebanon.
7th last week?
You know what? It's not about you. It's not
Why
about
did you
me.
carry out
Listen to
Lebanon's
the
October the
Lebanese.
7th last
Salah
week?
Makhnouk was on
Why did you
last
kill
week.
300
And I think
people?
you should listen to what he
300
said.
people
He
you
was on
killed.
Pierce's show, and he spoke
Doron,
the
do you not
truth
feel ashamed
that the Lebanese
your military
people want
massacred
Hezbollah
300
gone.
people in 10 minutes? How do you sleep at night?
I'm
supporting
sure
a
it is
military that
true.
massacred
I'm sure it's true
300
many
people in 10
Lebanese people would
minutes?
like Hezbollah gone, but it's also true that many Lebanese people right now are running terrified for their lives because of the bombing
million
raids
people.
over them.
A million people displaced
and a million
from their homes
people
by
have been
Israel.
displaced from their homes. And there's a horrible
Pierce,
familiar
if we don't
past
displace
that follows
them,
what happened in Gaza.
Pierce,
with
if we
this.
don't displace them, then I go on this show and we're accused of killing civilians, right? And if we do
you are
displace
killing
them,
civilians
then we're
anyway.
accused of
You
displacement.
told them they
my
can't
question
come
to you is
back.
this. Wait,
Don't
my
lie,
question is very
Doron.
simple.
Don't gaslight us. You've
Hold
told
on,
them
I'm
they
gonna let
can't
you
come
speak.
back.
Mehdi
That means
Hasan,
it's
I have
ethnic
one
cleansing.
question for you. Does Israel have a right to respond to Hezbollah after they shot 6,000 rockets at us unprovoked on October 8th, 2023, one day after October 7th? Do we have a right to respond?
Any country has a right to defend itself. Of course it does.
Does Israel have
Does
a right?
Lebanon have a
Because
right
you
to
seem
defend
to-
itself from Israeli invasion?
How?
Hold
should we
on.
defend
Doron,
ourselves?
you always start these timelines. You start these timelines in weird places. You say 2014, ignoring what happened in 2015. You say October 8th, 2023. You ignore what happened in 2024, Doron. Let me remind the viewers of Piers Uncensored. There was a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah since the end of 2024. According to the UN, according to UN peacekeepers that Israel keeps attacking, you keep attacking Irish and Nepalese and Indonesian peacekeepers. The UN peacekeepers in southern Lebanon say Israel violated the ceasefire, not 1,000 times, not 5,000 times. They say you violated the ceasefire 15,000 times over the last 18 months. So please don't come and tell me about unprovoked
I don't know
rockets.
about your
You,
numbers,
Israel,
however,
violated that ceasefire.
I have one question.
You killed,
Why did
well,
Israel,
you can
what
Google
were
is
the
your friend,
conditions of that
Doron.
agreement?
400
Wait,
people.
there was one
hold on.
basic
You
condition
can't just say I don't know my
Guys,
numbers.
we've run out of
My
time.
numbers are from the
Hezbollah would
UN.
We've run out
not
of
be in
time.
Southern Lebanon.
I'm sorry, we've run out of
You
time.
murdered 300 people last week,
Okay.
including a baby at her father's funeral.
I'm
Doron.
gonna
We
leave it.
murdered 300 terrorists last week, and I think those are your people.
Okay.
A one-year-old baby is a terrorist. I
I
think that speaks volumes about your
I'm
view
going
of
to leave
Arabs.
it there.
The one-year-old baby was put in harm's way because
Okay,
Hezbollah
I'm gonna
created
leave it
southern
there,
Lebanon
gentlemen.
At a
into
funeral?
battlefield.
I
They were put at
appreciate you
harm's way
joining
at a
me.
funeral?
We've run out of time. So
Wow.
thank you both very much. I appreciate it.
This debate exposed how impossible these conversations become once every side feels permanently threatened. Israel argues from decades of attacks, terrorism, and regional hostility. Iran argues from sanctions, assassinations, and foreign intervention. After enough years of conflict, both governments start viewing compromise as weakness instead of strategy. And once a population accepts that mindset, leaders gain political power by sounding tougher, not calmer. Another thing people miss is how wars today don't stay contained to one battlefield anymore. A strike in Iran affects oil prices in Europe, food prices in Africa, shipping routes in Asia, and elections in America. That's why Trump's name kept coming up throughout the discussion. A long conflict in the Middle East doesn't just damage the region, it creates economic pressure worldwide, especially on ordinary people who have nothing to do with the fighting itself. The other uncomfortable reality is that military victories are getting harder to define. Governments can destroy facilities, assassinate commanders, and cripple infrastructure, yet still fail to create political stability afterward. We've seen that pattern repeatedly over the last 2 decades, and the longer conflicts drag out, the easier it becomes for hardliners on every side to justify even more escalation. By the end, nobody looked close to agreement because the argument was never only about uranium or missiles. It was about who gets to decide which countries are dangerous, which countries are responsible, and who gets to enforce those rules militarily. That question is much bigger than Israel and Iran, and the world still hasn't figured out a consistent answer to it. That's the end of the video. Make sure to support the channel with a like and subscribe for more debates and political commentary like this.